Thank you very much, Brother Nyasha, for coming to chat with us here at York Seventh-day Adventist from the Communication Department. We are glad that you spared a little bit of your busy schedule to come and talk to us. First of all, before we can proceed with the interviews, I just want to ask you to tell us about your, what are your full names?
My full name's Nyasha Joseph Suliali.
Yeah.
So in terms of translation for the sake of others, Nyasha is a Shona name, and it is a direct translation of the word grace or mercy.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person, or kindness, right? So if a person is kind, you would say in Shona, Ane Nyasha. Ane means they have, or he has, or she has. Nyasha being kindness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my first name. It was given to me by my eldest sister, Ellen, who I love so much. She gave that to me. And then my second name, Joseph, my second sister, Yvonne, who I love so much. And my surname, obviously, from the parents on my mother's side, Suliali.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's a bit of history to that. If you'd like us to discuss about it, I can let you know about the history of the name Suliali, but it's not Shona, as you can easily tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, we wouldn't want to get into that, so maybe we can talk it over the camera, But now, tell me about your childhood. Where were you born, and what was the best part of your childhood, and also the worst part of your childhood, whatever you can remember?
Yes. Okay. So I was born in Harare. It's the capital of a country down south of Africa called Zimbabwe. I was born at a hospital, a government hospital called Mbuyanehanda Hospital. So Mbuyanehanda is one of the people that are known to be part of the history of Zimbabwean struggle for freedom.
Yeah.
It was popularly named after her. And then that's where I was born. And then I was raised in a place called Glen Norah. It is a high-density suburb somewhere there in Harare. That's where my mother was staying with my sisters. And we had one of our cousins, who I call my Nini, but she's as good as my mother, being a child of one of my mother's brothers.
Yeah.
Yes, so she was partially assisting with raising me. And then my mother bought a house in a place called Waterfalls just a year after I was born. So from 1986, I was living in Waterfalls, Harare. That's where I was born.
Right.
If I would talk about what I liked the most about my childhood, it's the organic nature of life back in the day.
Right.
So I will obviously remember from maybe 1989 when I was 4 years old, growing up. But it's pretty much close to the 80s. So I would say life was almost the same between 1985 and 1990, such that I wouldn't say there was much difference when I was a child as far as life in Zimbabwe was concerned.
Right.
So what I liked was life was just simple. We did not have a television. We did not have a radio. We did not have a telephone. So there were telephones back in the day.
Yeah.
A telephone.
Yeah.
We did not have a telephone. So we don't even talk about cell phones. So we talked as humans.
Yeah.
Everything that we did was at a first-hand personal basis, obviously, except for letters that are sent and people communicate via letters. So life was simple. There are many other families that had technology, right? So it's not like Zimbabwe was far back. But, our family was not that privileged. So we had a very simple life, but I actually liked the fact that I spent a lot of my time with my mother, with my sisters, a lot of my time with my grandfather. The one thing that I think I loved the most of all of the things that I've already said is time that I spent with my grandpa.
Right.
So my grandpa, like I said to you before we started, he was partially blind and partially deaf.
Right.
He was one simple old man, very old. He was in his 90s. So I used to play with him. So we made wire cars. So he helped me make wire cars.
Right.
I obviously brought my ball, and he would sit there, and he couldn't really play. He was weak because he had the lung cancer.
Yeah. Okay.
So he was coughing a lot, but he would sit there. I would kick the ball to him. He would hardly see where the ball is, but he just sat with me, man. That was my greatest time.
Right.
My worst time was school, grade 4, long division. I don't want to go back there. Of course, I would love to go back to being young, but I really had trouble with long division.
Yeah. Okay.
So, well, it's any child, I mean, there are traumatic situations in life that happen and so forth, but as a child, that was serious trauma to me because I understood most of the things. I could add and subtract, but long division, I just couldn't get it. It was too much to think through. So I struggled, and it was a time that I felt as if the world had ended for me as a child. That was
so I school, and maybe you can also touch from the secondary school how you went to do, how you went to university as well, and what you read at university as well, You will give us a little bit of a background over that as well.
Okay. So I went to a school called Frank Johnson Primary School. That is primary school up to what is called grade 7 when you're 12 years old. That's in Zimbabwe, Harare. Then I went to another community school for my secondary school and high school. It's called Lord Malvern High School. It's within my community as well in Waterfalls. Then I left. So I wanted to go to university like everyone, an application, but I was adamant that I wanted to learn technology. So I wanted to do other things. And I applied to go to university, but I actually did not go to university. Then I started to learn how to fix computers. You see, when you're still growing, sometimes you don't have a full picture of what you know and what you don't know, what is a genuine course and what is a fake course or a short course. I just wanted to learn things. So I spent the whole of 2004 just fooling around and learning how to fix computers. And then I went to a company called the Zimbabwe Electricity Transmission and Distribution Company in 2005 to do an apprenticeship in radio communications. So I was a technician, basically. I was just a spanner boy. I take a screwdriver, I read schematics, I learn from engineers firsthand, and they tell me what to do, and I just do it. No thinking. Yeah, not much thinking. Then there was a problem there because I being raised and going to church and reading books, and I felt that no, I should be able to apply my mind. I should be able to ask questions and do things according to the way I understand them. So I had a bit of a problem and exchanges with my bosses because I wasn't really towing the line as expected. So I remember that I applied again for university in 2005 during that apprenticeship. And then 2006, I was supposed to go to university. I was deployed to a place called Orange Grove in Mutare, Zimbabwe as well. I went to Orange Grove. I bickered with the bosses until I said I'm leaving, right? So I remember the way I left so that I can go to university. I just asked that if there was a truck that was going to Harare carrying some of the substation equipment. I told them to pass by where I stayed, and then I picked my bags and I went. That's how I left, because I just felt that I could not apply my mind. If I want to do things in a certain way according to how things were written and I read them, I was not allowed because company procedure and all that. So I felt squashed. So I left. Long and short, I then packed my bags, went to university in Bulawayo to the National University of Science and Technology.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I studied physics from 2006 September
Right.
to 2010. Fortunately, I had the chance to come back to Harare during what is called a placement year or industrial attachment year. So I came to Harare and I worked at an aircraft maintenance company.
Mm-hmm.
When I went back to finish off my degree in 2010, in June, by the end of June, when I was back in Harare, I went back to work at that company.
Right, right.
I worked there with my first degree for
Mm-hmm.
1.5, close to 2 years, one
Right.
and 3/4 of a year. And the same problem resurfaced.
Mm.
I could not agree with people who do not take the principle. So if we're talking about measurements, it's an aircraft you're wiring. If we're talking about measurements, principle is there's a diagram that tells you that you should put a pin on this particular point and so forth.
Yeah.
But if you do not have that pin, the pin is a connector. It's as simple as that. You can make a connector yourself and things work, but we would not agree with each other because of those principle differences.
Yeah.
So I just said, no, I need to apply my mind. So I left and went to work at a research company, research organization for 3 months. So I wanted to do a master's and they refused that I do a master's unless I take unpaid leave. Then I left that and I went to Bulawayo. That's where I did my second degree, which was the master's. So it was by research, part-time, and then I finished that in 2017. I started in 2013. I did research in physics in the field of optics, so I was basically working with lasers. Then that gave me the opportunity to meet many people and to network, and then I had to, when I completed that degree, then I went to South Africa to study nanophotonics at the Nelson Mandela University.
Right.
And that was the last I went to formal school.
Right.
So I finished off my PhD in 2020, December.
Right.
And I did not graduate because it was during COVID. So I graduated looking at the computer and the graduation ceremony was being run remotely. So then I left and then I worked there in South Africa up to 2022 and then came to York and worked in York for 2 years and now in Milton Keynes. That's how my schooling has taken me so far.
All right, that's good. That's good. Now, let's take a look at you have a PhD currently, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, very good, very good. Now, take me through your faith journey. Were you born in a Christian family?
Yes, my mother was Anglican.
Mm-hmm.
My sisters went obviously to the Anglican church with my mom, but when we moved to Waterfalls, I understand that it was very far from many churches. So the nearest church was 7 miles. It was at a place called 7 miles from town, and Waterfalls is what is. So I would say the church was maybe 3 miles from my home. I'm just estimating.
Right.
The nearest Anglican church. So my mom was not going there as often. My sisters made friends at school. They went to a school called Southerton Primary School. So they made friends. Those friends are from a family called the Kavaza family and others. So the friends, they called my sisters and they made friends. They went to Pathfinders and Adventurers together. And my friends were not from church. So I was just following mom. If she wasn't going to church, that was it. So long and short, my mom then started to develop an interest in the church because my sisters always sang and they brought, sometimes the friends would come over at home. So they made a very strong connection with the church family. So I used to like Sabbath because there was good food that was prepared. So I was a passive participant. When people went to church on Sabbath, I would go. If they didn't go, I didn't go. It was neither here nor there for me. So, but when the few times that I went, especially Pathfinders, what made me interested was I used to like fiddling with a lot of things like fixing wires and motor wire cars and so forth. So they had these activities. They did like arts and crafts, and they did marching, and they did fire, preparing a fire, and they did sack race. So it was active. It was an active environment. So I started to also gain an interest in that. And then we had to go to church, obviously, because they were telling us about Pathfinders and church. So we used to go on Sundays, and then we started to also go on Saturdays to church.
Right.
And I will say that the place that changed me was Sabbath school lessons.
Right.
We had dedicated teachers. So when I think about it as a person who's now grown old, and I think about life back in the day, I now see how much they were dedicated, because life was not that easy and interesting and flexible. So these people who were youths who were teaching us, I remember one called Brother Connie, Brother Morgan, Sister Sandra, and others. So they taught us. So they were the teachers for primary school, primary class, kindergarten class. Okay, there was no real-time faith, but there was a class that was before you went to the senior youth class. So they taught us a lot. And one of the things they encouraged, go and read for yourself. So they didn't tell us to just do things. They told us about God. They defined God, and they gave us a time to doubt God. So they'd say, ask any questions. So we asked all the questions. So I actually think, in my strong view, that for a person to have faith in something, they need to have heard about it, obviously. But belief comes through interrogating how far true this is. So it doesn't matter what you believe, but if you have come to an extent of interrogating yourself, point of understanding what it is for yourself, you get to appreciate what it is. So I was happy to be taught by people that were genuine and that were not just doing it for the sake of teaching, but they were really giving us a chance to converse so that we can interrogate the faith. So that's how I learned about God. From the childhood.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So at what age were you baptized then into the Seventh-day Adventist Church?
I was baptized at the age of 12 at Waterfalls. Well, the baptism was at another church within our district. So it was called Harare Church or Mbari Church. A pastor called Pastor Mangwende. He was a very lovely old man. He was old, but he baptized still at the time. So yeah, I was baptized at 12 when I was in grade 7. And it was common for people to be baptized at that age, but it was a chance because at that age we used to want to be baptized. I can't say we used to, but that is how it was. You were taught things in such a way that you would have a desire to do things for yourself. So maybe some people had pressure, but I actually wanted this thing. I wanted to be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ and get to know about him.
Right. So now you got baptized into the church, and how long did it take you to get a leadership role or a position that you participated in in church leadership?
Leadership came at Pathfinders. So during lessons, we would be given some duties. So we're given duties such as counting the money that has been collected. So you'll be called the class treasurer. We are talking that small class, primary class, or the classes that we had during Sabbath school. So you'll be given a chance to be treasurer, or you'll be given a chance to be secretary to mark the card, people that are present, people that are absent, people that we have visited, and so forth. So it was from those exercises that I think some of the people that were teaching us, they got some idea as to what you are capable of and your strengths and what they could groom you on. So my first leadership role was just as a Pathfinder captain, where we were basically in charge of a small section of the group of Pathfinders. As captain, you were supposed to take care of your small battalion. So whatever marching orders that are being taught, so the director would sit down with the captains, teach them what everyone else is supposed to learn. Then at Pathfinders, we were many, by the way. These churches were big,
Right.
so we
Right.
were many.
Right.
So at the time, we would be given certain classes, and then after the classes, then you go you teach your own class as a captain, and then that's how you captain the class. So
Right.
I was captain, then I was made counselor later on as we grew. So counselor, you would now be counseling the younger
ones, yes.
Yes, behind you.
Okay. Okay.
From there, yeah, there were other duties that I did, like in some of the singing groups, to direct the music and to assist with organizing events. So basically, just logistics, I would say.
Right. Right. Okay. Very good. Very good. So, looking at your life so far, what what makes you, proud of from all these achievements that you've got?
Okay, so I would have wanted to be proud of something, but I can say I'm proud to have learned and have exercised the little responsibility that is required by a parent for a child. I think that on the balance of probabilities, with all the opportunities that came with life, I think I did as best as I could for my mother. I had duties, obviously, for my sisters, duties for, in Africa, we take care of as many people as we are capable of.
Yeah.
But I think I did fairly well with my mother. I gave her the chance. Of course, she raised me, right? In Africa, we have this thing. So in Zimbabwe, we have this thing of when you're growing up, you are raised by your parents. But when you're now able to take care of yourself, you actually take care of your parents.
Yeah.
We actually take pride in that. It's a thing that I'm doing this for my mother. I'm doing this for my father. I took my parents to the village and I bought them a wheelbarrow. You see, when you do something for your parents, it's something that people talk about. It's something we get proud of. So I am happy that the Lord helped me when I could to, first of all, assist with the basics at home, taking care of the bills, and then get to a point where I could say my mother she was retired, by the way, when I was still working. So her income, we worked with my sisters to actually give her a source of income. So we were so excited. In my opinion, that was an achievement because we could go our way and find what we need in life without worrying that there's something that's missing at home.
Yeah, okay.
We knew that our mother was taken care of, and it was through our efforts. So I think taking care of mom for me was an achievement.
Very good, very good. So, in terms of influence in your life, who has been the greatest influence in your life, and what lessons actually have you learned so far, that you can pass on to others as well?
My greatest influence was my mother, Joanna Suliali. So the reason why she was my greatest influence, I'm sure many people know that mother and son is a very strong bond.
Exactly, yeah.
So she obviously had a good relationship with my sisters, but I'll talk about mine because that's what you asked. So
yeah,
she was my inspiration. My mother was one of the simplest people. If you'd meet my mother, you'd never know what she is or what she has or what she doesn't.
right.
She would just be walking in the street. So you could just say, I just saw some lady pass by. But when I look at this lady, she was raising her children single-handedly, unfortunately.
Right.
But in that state of raising them single-handedly, she sent us to school, the three of us. We have a 5-year gap.
Right.
So she sent us to school, the three of us, up until we finished, and she managed to teach us to relate to each other in such a way that the eldest sister took care of my second sister. And then when my second sister was working, she took care of me. And then when I was out and I was working, I took care of mom. So I don't know how she did it. She did not sit us down to really say, you should do this. And it's just the way she was. She was
Right.
just responsible. Number two, she fended for herself. So she taught me that in life, you can have people that support you. So you can have family, you can have friends, you can have your job, you can have investments, you can have many other things. But you should fend for yourself. You should put a roof over your head, and you should make sure that everyone who you're taking care of, who is depending on you, not in turn depending on someone else who you are depending on. So she taught me to be responsible for the people that I have to take care of.
Right, right.
In such a way that those people are not at risk. So in other words, she was saying, for instance, a simple example, she always said you should buy a house and you should have a roof over your head. So that when the storm is there, out there, your children, when they come inside, or your brother or your sister, or when anyone comes to you as refuge, they are not coming to you, but they are indebted to someone who can come and say to you, you have to leave this place, and they are vulnerable. So the third thing she taught me, so she was a banker. So she worked in a bank called Standard Chartered Bank.
Right.
She took care of a mortgage in the rightful time. So at the time, it was not permitted, nor common, nor easy for a lady, for a woman to get a bond or a mortgage. It was banks actually assessed based on sex as well. If you're a female, your application was not easily accepted, especially when you were a single lady, because they believed that the support system that you should have should come from the husband, even though you work. That is how things were. But she was tenacious. So she wanted that house to the extent that she just kept making her application. She kept getting rejections. She kept making applications until she got the mortgage through.
Right.
And she lived within her means. Simple. So she taught me that so you can have a degree, you can have a job, right? And then something happens, you get hit by a car, and you don't have your foot, and you can no longer work. And the company just said, for some reason, they say, okay, you should go home. She taught me that you should live within your means. So when disaster strikes, you should not be in a state where you cannot pay your rentals, because you are living in a place that costs £1,000 when you earn £200. She said, find a way of living in a place that costs you far much less than you earn. Even if it is going to be a very, very tiny, uncomfortable place, live within your means such that when you're in there and you have a loaf of bread and that's all you have, you eat it with peace of mind. You're not eating it and thinking that the landlord is going to knock and say, I want my rent, because you can't afford it. So she taught me to live within my means. So she's my inspiration. I have many other inspirations that I got from other family friends, but my mother was my inspiration.
Very good, very good. Now, you are a principled man based on the evidence that actually I've seen here in New York, Can you take me through the power that makes you distinguished gentleman, actually? Are these powers actually drawn from faith or beliefs? You have very, very, strong beliefs, and principles. Give us more details about that, Brother Nyasha.
I'm laughing because when you say principled man, I'm actually looking for someone else. So I need the Lord to still work on me to get to that point where I am a principled man. But the little that I can share is that I first of all learn about the things that I am not good at. So my defects, and I always reflect upon those. Introspection. So I like the idea of the Sabbath because I think that when God was making the Sabbath, one of the things that he was just creating was just time for introspection, for self-introspection. So when you talk about principle, I laugh because I feel that whenever I introspect on the Sabbath, quiet hour, no disturbances, I can tell how much I really need God for me to get to that point. And as far as the little that he has taught me is concerned, I could just say being genuine about what you're doing and doing what you can is probably the best thing to do in life. So we have standards, for example, that are in the Bible. We have standards that are in other disciplines. And we find that discipline, the things that were taught in the Bible are actually true and practical. So, for example, when the Bible is talking about not bribing, right? Not bribing our way through life, about being honest, whether or not you can do something. So I just learned from those basic principles, especially in Proverbs. So if you just read the book of Proverbs, it's like it's rebuking you, it's telling you a lot of the positives and the negatives of life.
Right.
I just learned that life is practical. The little that I've learned is when we meet other people, let's consider other people to be far much better than us. Let's respect everyone who we meet. Let's be kind to people that we meet. Let's be responsible, and don't give people a headache wherever you go. Those are some of the things I would like to attribute the things that I learned also to culture. So the African culture, the Zimbabwean culture, the little that we were taught just told us to be responsible for the things that are within your jurisdiction. So if you have been given a task to do, for example, first of all, accept a task that you're available for. If you're not available, just tell people, I'm not available for this, I can't do it, and refuse to do it. Don't say, yes, I will do something when you don't have the time to do it. I fail on that so many times, but I try as much nowadays. If I have been given an opportunity to do something, if I assess that I'm capable of doing it, then I want to dedicate to it and see it through as best as possible. For example, if we're talking about working in the Church of God, this is a voluntary work, so you cannot expect everyone to do things in a certain way, because everyone must be pushed by their own feeling. But I believe that when we are doing God's work, I think number one, it is a sacred work. So, okay, that's not a thought. It's obvious. It's a fact. It's a sacred work. But the attitude that we give when we are doing God's work, or when we are interacting with others in evangelism or doing other things, the attitude must be equal and more to the one that we give to our own professions. You see now people are serious when they are going to work. When I go to work, I am very serious about what I'm doing. So when I'm writing an article, I want to make sure that the reader understands the science that is within whatever it is that we have developed. And the extent to which I try to make it well done and as up to the standard that is expected as possible is the same attitude that I think we should give to the things of God. If I've been given my only duty to sit at the door and to open the door, I want to open that door and close that door to the best possible way that I can until someone asks about how to open a door and how, if there's anything that is special about doing it. So we don't have to do great things or minor things, whatever it is that we are doing. I think that we should just do our best at whatever it is. If it is our relations with our relatives or relations with our friends, and your friend wants assistance, need you to come and help them to paint a room, show up, paint that room, but don't just paint it for the sake of painting. Find out how best it's done. Does your friend know how it's supposed to be done? If they do, listen to how they're doing it and do it to the extent that when you leave, they are actually happy and they're actually excited that, okay, something has been done well. So the long and short is, I think that the source of the little that I've learned and been able to do is just learning to do things and to deliver according to what is expected and to exceed as best as possible. And if it is with the things of God, doing it for God and not for any recognition of any sort.
Yeah. Very good, very good. Now, If you are to hold actually some memory, from your life, forever, what could that be?
The memory I would hold forever would be, so I'm sorry to take it back again, but it's the time that I spent with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an opportunity to visit a certain place where I was working, and I went with my mom, and she actually had this desire. She used to talk about the people in that place a lot, and she and her mom as well, Janet, they had this passion, but my grandmother passed away before she got the opportunity to experience that life.
Yeah.
And I made a few sacrifices so that my mother could have that experience. And we traveled together and we spent some time together. And she, in my opinion, had the feeling that any other person who has traveled the world experienced. And I think that was something that is memorable in my life.
Okay, very good, very good. So now, Brother Nyasha, if you were to give an inside advice to a beginner as a church leader, what would that be?
As a church leader and you are starting, I would say first things, deliberately decide to do this for God. So there is a nominal expectation or a common expectation that when you're a leader of a certain department or a certain church or a certain office of the church, you are doing it for God. So it's common knowledge, but you have to deliberately decide to do it for God. So the reason why I say so is that church is a place where people meet. Human beings are different. We are all different. We come from, the difference in our names is the difference in our characters. We are totally different. Some people that are supportive. So as a leader, you're going to meet supportive people. You will have a program, right? And that's the second thing. You need to have a program of whatever department that you are running. You're doing it for God, right? But you should have a program. So the reason why I'm saying deliberately for God, while you're executing that program, the support that you expect might not actually come. Because, like I said, people are different. Some people are genuinely not going to be able to assist you.
Right.
Some people are actually watching you just to see if you will be able to do it or to pull it off. Some people actually need your help, so they can't help you. They need your help.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're doing, but deliberately decide to do it for God. So make it an intention, a deliberate intention, diarize it. So the way you plan your work, waking up in the morning and you're saying, when I get to the office, the first thing is I'm going to check emails. After emails, I'm going to go to this office. After that, I'll make it the way you do it for your company, for your own tasks, for your own errands on holiday, and you say, I've got my list of things.
Right.
It's the same way you should plan for God's work.
God's work, yeah.
Why? Because we are reaching out to other people. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Maybe you're choristering. Maybe whatever you're doing, you are reaching out to other people. The end result of any worship service in church is for one person who has come to be relieved of the burdens of their life and the burdens of sin. That's all we are going to church for. The Son of Man came to seek and to save that which was lost.
Exactly.
So when a person has come to church, they have something that they're longing for. They want experience with God. They need God's intervention, or maybe they're actually going there to thank God. Whatever it is, it may be good or it may be a bad experience. Whatever it is, they are going to be receiving that service through your contribution as a leader. So if you are dependent on other people, or if you're dependent on other systems of life, and you do not do it deliberately for God, right? And you say, I've done my part, because you can say, I've done my part. This is my direct duty. My direct duty is just to sit at the door and to count the number of people, and I won't do anything more than that. If you do it like that, you're going to just tick a box
Yeah.
But someone who may have come later might not be counted because you felt that the time that you were going to count people has lapsed.
Mm-hmm.
So do it deliberately for God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stretch yourself as much as you stretch yourself for the things that you do at your own work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not pull long hours at work? Do you not go for overtime at work?
Mm-hmm.
Do you not still go to work when there are problems at work?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm? Do you not have some problems at work and people are actually laughing at you, or someone reported you? You still go to work, right?
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
you know that you're there for your paycheck, and
Mm-hmm.
you go home and your children will eat. They don't know that someone was yelling at you at work.
Mm-hmm.
Deliberately put yourself in that mode. I'm not saying church will bring you negative things all the time, but plan it and execute it with a deliberate planned intention, so
Mm-hmm.
that when you're executing it, when you say, I have greeted a person, you have done it to the best of your knowledge, and God will reward you for that, and
Exactly.
will reward the person for that.
Exactly.
So have a plan. Then the third thing, so we say do it deliberately for God, have a plan. The third thing I would say is ask people for assistance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't know everything.
Yeah.
You can actually have a degree in sociology, or you are a counselor, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
you have been given a counseling duty in church.
Mm-hmm.
Consult. Go and ask people that have been there for a long time. So that's one of the key things. Ask the
Exactly.
elderly. Ask
Yeah.
people. The elderly does not necessarily mean an elderly person who has been in church, even an elderly person who is a visitor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People that have lived on earth for a long time and experienced life for longer, they
All right.
know better. You can learn a lot from people that are elderly. And you can also ask people that have been at church for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things that we are supposed to do according to a certain set of rules.
Yeah.
So for structure, it's obvious that there should be rules that guide the way we do things. But
Mm-hmm.
there is a certain element of humanity that comes from from the way people expect you to serve. So, for example, if you go to York Church, ask the people that have been at York Church, how best is it possible for me to do this part of my duty so that people are best served?
Yeah.
Because whatever applied back at Harare Church is not going to apply at York Church. So
Exactly. Yeah.
ask people, you'll be amazed at how many suggestions, how many solutions, and how
Mm.
many future plans that you'll come up with just because people have told you what to do.
Yeah.
So I would say anyone who's coming into duty, try those three and take it from there. And obviously, always consult God, because this is God's work. It's not our business. So
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
need His guidance.
Indeed. 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 So, do you have any regrets of being a Christian, a Seventh-day Adventist?
Oh, yes. There were some regrets. It's part of life, but we were beaten at school.
Mm.
Yeah, so we're beaten at school for going to for refusing to come to play cricket on a Sabbath.
Right.
So, I regretted when I was at that age, because being beaten, well, corporal punishment, it was normal at
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
age, at high school. So we did not have to ask whether or not it's right or wrong. But I ended up saying, why did I choose to be a Christian? Because
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
knew that every Monday I'm being what? I'm being beaten.
Going to be beaten.
Because we always were expected to go to do some sporting on Sabbath.
Nah.
But what I would say is that even though at that time I regretted it, I actually did not know the impact that it had.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see, the things that God has taught us, some of the things we understand them, but some of the things we do not understand them.
Mm-hmm.
So as we learned about God and we kept going to church and we spread as much of the word as we could,
Mm-hmm.
there are some people, I would not completely attribute my actions, but I think it was an influence through the experience that were in my class that I was surprised to see at church when we were much older.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so So I am happy that at the time, even though I regretted to be a Christian because I was being beaten and it was making me uncomfortable, but that was also opening up doors for other people to learn because they saw what was happening and they questioned why it was happening. We interacted, we talked about it, we shared the word, and they knew why I always said I'll go and rather be beaten on a Monday.
Yeah.
But with time, wherever they were influenced into thinking along the lines of Christianity. And we actually I met a lot of guys from high school in the class that I was participating in later on in life. And they mentioned some of these things about what happened as a child. So yeah, at that time, I did regret it.
Okay. So when all is said and done, Brother Nyasha, how do you want to be remembered as a professional, as a Christian, as a member of your family?
I would like to be remembered as a person that delivers. That's what. So this is in all aspects because charity begins at home.
Yeah.
So if my sisters, if my mother, if anyone would be asked when we get to heaven, if they would be asked what Nyasha did, I wish they would just say he just showed up when it was time for him to show up. That's all. Because in my experience in life, I've met a lot of people that will tell you that, okay, no, tomorrow we'll do it. I'll come and help you. We'll do this, we'll do that tomorrow. And people don't show up. And I can't really follow up because they've volunteered. And sometimes some of the other people are actually people that are paid services. I've worked with people who are professionals. I pay for a service and I'm expecting that service. So I actually switch off when it comes to certain things because I assume that the person who is doing that is a professional. And then I discover that I actually have to do a lot of things for them. And it infuriates me because my expectation is if you're a professional in something, if you're a lawyer, then you know how to read, isn't it? You read with detail and you make sure that the details are correct. Yeah. And when I go through the document, I should not see mistakes in that document because a lawyer has gone through it. But I've gone through a lot of documents which I've seen and have corrected for lawyers and conveyancers, people that are very important. And I've been disappointed by that. And there are some situations, even in issues of faith, where we say, we want to sing. So we used to have, I used to participate in some singing groups. So we are singing at this program. And we have parts, right? There's a first tenor, there's a bass and a baritone, and there's no other person. And then the first tenor doesn't feature. And it always disappointed me. Why don't you deliver? So my hope is whatever I do today is to deliver. If it's to the Lord, I wish that God himself, as far as the things that he expects of me is concerned, I wish he would say, you did your best. And where you were expected, you arrived on time and you did what you're supposed to do. That's just my hope.
Excellent. Now we are looking at Mr. Nyasha, as a young man, now, is there any Mrs. Right popping up somewhere, or it's something that you don't consider that now?
I do consider it now. I've been considering it. It just hasn't taken place.
Right.
So I am still praying and hoping that one day I will meet a person who I can converse with at the same level, and we can plan a life and manage a life and estates together. That's just my dream. So I am very much optimistic, but I also believe that you should do your due diligence. I believe that relationships, having passed a lot of places in life and visited a lot, I've interacted with a lot of people. So one of the things that I've learned is that when I marry, the person that I marry, it will be my person and I will be their person and we'll be doing our things. So I should not marry a person because of the things that other people want from them.
Yeah.
I should marry a person because I have interacted, we have agreed on a way of doing things, and
Yeah.
we can plan together. So I'm working on that, and hopefully when the Lord provides, certainly you will have a Suliali lady coming to York and visiting and saying, "Hello, this is my husband, Nyasha." Yeah.
Very good, very good. Yeah, that has been Brother Nyasha, who has been our head deacon here at York Seventh-day Adventist the past few months when he has been in York, working at University of York as a researcher. He's a dedicated Christian and a very good young man who loves his Lord. So I hope we're going to learn something out of Brother Nyasha's life. Any final words, Brother Nyasha, to the viewers?
Well, first of all, I thank you, Brother Jackson, for organizing this. I thank York Church for organizing this as well. I learned a lot from the church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church in York. I learned dedication. I saw a lot of dedicated people that loved the Lord, whether or not there are many people at church that are coming to church. I made friends. We sang and we had an experience. So I'm just thankful to York Church and the Seventh-day Adventist Church at large. I'm thankful to my family and I hold them dearly. And my hope is that whatever we do, may we not do things so that people can have an impression of us. May we just do things out of love. May we just love our family, immediate family, regardless of all the things that we'll be going through. May we have a bond with our families. May we do our best even where we do not have bonds. May we hold our friends dear, and may we also know that the Lord who created us, the Lord God who created us, he actually cares. And at the point that we're giving up, let's ask the Lord for power. Let's ask our friends, let's do what we can, because the kingdom of heaven that he has promised for us, in my opinion, is the solution to all the things that we're actually going through physically. We can talk about that at length, but I actually believe the Lord is going to solve a lot of things for us by just coming and giving us a new heaven and a new earth.
Amen.
This earth is not habitable anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Brother Nyasha. And I think